Welcome to the Wife Stories YouTube channel. New video every day, and don't forget to subscribe. Here we go.
There's a soft click as my phone locks. I look at the screen and see my own face reflected in it. Exhausted, hollow. That tiny sound of the locking mechanism echoes in my head like a starter's pistol, urging me to move. I'm standing in the dim light of the hallway, right outside the bedroom. I've been standing here too long. My hand hovers over the doorknob. The entire house is eerily quiet, except for the faint hum of the air conditioning and a muffled conversation from the living room. Conversation might be too generous a word. Actually, there's a certain tone in those voices, a breathless urgency that doesn't fit everyday small talk. I remember the moment I first felt like an outsider in my own life. It wasn't a particular day or a catastrophic fight. No, it was just a small shift. Something in Jennifer's eyes. The way she'd glance at her phone with a strange little smile. The way she'd go to bed before me and lock the door for extra privacy. Something she never used to do. And then there was the night she came home hours later than planned, reeking of a perfume not hers, cheeks flushed with adrenaline. She said she was out with colleagues from her social media group, some big collaboration she was spearheading. I wanted to believe her. I truly did. But I'm a methodical man. In my line of work, illusions are liabilities. My job, consulting for smart home technology, teaches you that data never lies. So I installed a new set of cameras under the guise of upgrading our security system. I updated the door lock to record every single entry with face recognition. Jennifer didn't question it. Maybe she was too complacent by then. Maybe she thought I was too wrapped up in my own projects to notice. Or maybe she believed I'd never push back. I'm not the type to slam fists against walls or hurl accusations. I dissect facts quietly, the way a surgeon peels away layers of tissue to find the tumor. That's how I ended up here, in the hallway, phone in hand, reading the notification from the smart lock. Unlocked at 2:07 a.m. Unknown user recognized. Michael Hampton. I can see the security footage. The top of a tall, broad-shouldered man stepping across my threshold, glancing over his shoulder, whispering to someone behind him. My wife, Jennifer. The timestamp reads 2:09. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. And that's what kills me. The casual nature of their betrayal. As though I'm invisible. As though my existence means nothing. I open the bedroom door. It's empty. But the bed is unmade, and I catch the faint scent of her floral shampoo, mixed with the smell of stale sweat and that intangible musk that only arises from two bodies locked together. My pulse pounds in my ears. Down the hall, the living room is dark, but a flicker from the muted television illuminates shapes on the couch. Two silhouettes. Tangled. There's a sudden hush, like they sense my presence. My phone buzzes. A text from one of my own coworkers, ironically about a midnight server patch we've been planning. And that tiny vibration sounds thunderous in the silence. I don't turn on the lights. The glow of the TV is enough. I walk closer and see them. Jennifer is half draped over a man I recognize from afar. Michael, a hotshot investor who's been popping up in Jennifer's social media feed for the last few months. His shirt is off, slung across the coffee table. Her blouse is undone, sliding off her shoulder. Her hair is tousled, her face flushed. She looks at me, eyes widening with shock, and something else. Fear, maybe. Fear of the consequences. Fear of me. The strangest part is how calm I feel. A cold clarity. Like a bucket of ice water poured straight into my veins. Michael jumps up, grabbing for his shirt. He stammers. This isn't. But I hold up a hand, and he goes silent. I don't scream. I don't throw punches. I just unlock my phone. Another small click. I tap the screen and show him the recorded footage of him entering my home at 2 in the morning. Date, time. His face. Pixel perfect. The same face I see now. Only then it wore a smug grin, as if he owned the night. Turn on the TV, my friend, I say quietly. Broadcast it. Show the whole country how you sneaked into another man's house to screw his wife. My voice shakes, but not with fear or uncertainty. It's a contained quake of rage. Controlled. If Jennifer expected tears or an explosion, she gets none. I see her flinch, pulling her blouse back over her shoulder. She's covering herself more out of shame than modesty. "Henry, please," she begins, voice trembling. I ignore her. I look at Michael. "You're a public figure, right? A big shot. People invest based on your reputation. Imagine what that little video snippet might do to your carefully curated brand." He opens his mouth, then shuts it again. He's only wearing trousers, still unzipped, shirt bunched in his fist. Jennifer wraps herself in a throw blanket from the back of the sofa. "Henry," she says again, a note of desperation. "Don't do this." "I'm not doing anything," I say, deadpan. "I'm just letting everyone see the truth. But maybe we can talk about it later." It's 2 in the morning, and I'm sure you both have had a thrilling night. Why not finish it off by reading tomorrow's headlines? I'm sure some tabloid will pick it up. Michael stands there, looking between Jennifer and me, as if his brain can't decide whether to fight or flee. But the truth is, there's nothing left for him to do. He's caught. Then I watch him piece it together. I have the footage, the timestamps, the logs from the smart lock. Everything's in my hands. And I see, in the flicker of his eyes, the realization that I'm not bluffing. I'm a man who deals in data. I could destroy him. Jennifer's voice cracks. "Henry, you're scaring me." I nod, acknowledging her words. "Yeah, I scare myself sometimes." Then I turn and walk away, heading to my study down the hall. I leave them alone in the darkness, with only the television's flicker playing across their stunned faces. A month passes, a quiet, suffocating month. Some men, after discovering betrayal, would throw out the cheater's belongings, file for divorce, create a scene. Not me. I kept things chillingly normal. I still shared the same bed with Jennifer, though I never touched her, and she never dared to touch me. When I cooked dinner, I'd calmly ask, "How was your day?" as if nothing had changed. At night, I'd finalize my backups of every message, every email she exchanged with Michael. I systematically organize her digital footprints, all their flirty pictures, suggestive texts, the flight itineraries for business trips that were actually romantic weekends. I traced every payment she made with our joint account, every gift she bought him. I compiled a separate folder for his finances as well. He was sloppy, for a so-called investment expert. Or maybe he just never expected a quiet, methodical man like me to dig so deep. I watched Jennifer closely during that month. She was jumpy, flinching whenever my phone buzzed. She'd sometimes look at me across the dinner table, eyes wide, searching for a hint of emotion. Rage, heartbreak, sorrow. But I kept it locked down. I was polite, almost kind, and maybe that frightened her more than if I'd rage. One night, as I was brushing my teeth, she stood in the doorway of the bathroom. Her eyes were red, and she whispered, "Henry, please, I'm sorry. Can we talk?" I spat into the sink and looked up at the mirror. Her reflection hovered behind mine, hollow and desperate. "Talk about what?" I said. She swallowed. "You know, us." I rinsed my mouth. "Us. There is no us anymore, Jennifer." And then I shut off the lights and went to bed, leaving her in the dark. She curled up on the far side of the mattress, her back turned to me. I wondered if she cried, but I found I didn't care enough to check. That same night, I wrote a short note to Michael. Nothing threatening, just a polite invitation to meet and discuss an opportunity. He answered 3 days later, apparently after some prodding from Jennifer. I imagine she begged him to see what I wanted, to see if there was a way to smooth it over. He likely doubted my sincerity, but his curiosity and greed outweighed his caution. We arranged a meeting at a private lounge in the city, a posh place with tinted windows and plush leather seats. I arrived first. I saw him walk in and realized how carefully he'd chosen his image. Pressed navy suit, tasteful tie, expensive watch shining under the overhead lights. He scanned the lounge, spotted me, then sat down across the table. There was tension in the air. He gave me a forced half-smile. "Henry," he said, voice quiet, "I didn't expect to hear from you." "I'm sure you didn't," I replied, studying his face. He looked uncertain, but also too arrogant to show it. For a moment, I pictured him in my living room, half-dressed, the same self-confident grin on his lips. Except that night, he was too busy enjoying my wife to notice me. Now he saw me with new eyes, the man who could end his career in a single keystroke. "What's this about?" he asked. "I think we both know the situation isn't exactly comfortable for either of us." I nodded. "Comfortable? No, it's not. But you're a businessman, and so am I. Sometimes, two people with an uncomfortable history can still make a mutually beneficial arrangement." He exhaled, fiddling with his watch band. "What arrangement?" I slid a thin, leather-bound folder across the table. "I have documents you might find interesting. Business proposals, investment leads, technology that could triple your returns in less than 2 years. I know how your mind works, Michael. You want success, growth, a bigger slice of the financial pie. Let's just say I have a few valuable patents in the works. You could benefit from them." He hesitated, opening the folder. I watched his eyes scan the pages, flicker with the same greed I'd seen before. He thought he was unstoppable, always chasing the next high. "This is impressive," he murmured. "It is," I agreed. "And it can all be yours, under one condition. You sign an agreement with me. It's a standard partnership contract, plus a few extra clauses to ensure my continued oversight. You bring in your capital, your connections, your name. I bring in the technology. We build something big." He stopped, flipping through the pages. "This is complicated. There are provisions for silent ownership shares." "Who gets those?" I met his gaze, unwavering. "I do. Permanently. If you sign this, I become the controlling interest in any venture you start from today forward. You'll be the public face, but I'll have the real power." He went pale. "That's insane. You'd own me." I shrugged. "You'll remain wealthy, your reputation intact. It's a good deal for you, considering the alternative." I reached into my breast pocket and pulled out a USB stick. "This is a copy of everything I have. Pictures, videos, texts, ready to be leaked at a moment's notice. You know how quickly this scandal would spread. Every investment partner you have would jump ship. And the biggest tragedy, not the scandal in your personal life, it's that it proves you entered a private home at night without permission. Here in California, that can look a lot like criminal trespass, possibly even attempted burglary if the right spin is applied." He stared at me, lips pressed tight. I could see rage flicker in his eyes, but I also saw fear, the same fear that danced in Jennifer's gaze when I caught them. Slowly, he exhaled. "So I sign, and you do what? Bury all of this?" I nodded once. "You have my word." He swallowed hard. "What about her?" "Jennifer. Jennifer will be out of my life soon enough," I said. "She's lost her right to any part of me. But you'll keep seeing me, from time to time. At board meetings or in the corners of your corporate offices, because I'll be your silent partner. The only difference is I won't pretend we're friends. We'll be bound by a contract. Nothing more." He ran a hand over his face, closing his eyes as though trying to piece together a different plan. But there was no alternative. I had all the leverage, and he knew it. Eventually, he opened his eyes, looked at me with trembling indignation, and said, "Fine. Where do I sign?" Without a word, I laid out the contract. He didn't bother reading the fine print. I watched him scrawl his signature, a flourish that in any other context would scream confidence. Here, it looked like surrender. He shoved the papers back at me and stood up. "Are we done?" he asked, Voice tight. I pocketed the contract. Yes, we're done. He left without another word. I sat there alone for another 20 minutes, paying the check for both our drinks, marveling at the clinical neatness of it all. I had no illusions. I was no hero. I'd become something else entirely, something cold and predatory. A man who, in the pursuit of justice or revenge, maybe both, had bartered his own soul. I got home to find Jennifer in the kitchen. She looked up, saw the satisfaction in my eyes, and blanched. "What did you do?" she whispered. "Secured my future," I said. She trembled, trying to read my expression. But I gave her nothing. I simply walked past her to my study and closed the door. In the following days, I prepared the divorce papers. She tried to reason with me, tried to weep and beg, but each attempt died under my unyielding stare. I found that my fury had turned into a sort of cold, dispassionate acceptance. It was simple. She had betrayed me, and I had no room in my life for illusions anymore. We sat down at the dining table late one afternoon, the sun casting long shadows across the polished wood. I handed her the paperwork. "Sign. Take whatever personal belongings you need. You'll get no alimony, no property. I've protected all my assets. You can contest it if you want, but I'll make sure the legal fight drains you dry." She put a hand over her mouth, eyes welling up. "Henry, this is cruel. You can't just leave me with nothing. We shared a life." "Shared? Is that what you call it?" My voice was low, almost gentle. "If you try to fight me, I'll show the courts how you siphoned our joint money, how you spent it on hotel rooms, gifts, flights for him. I'll provide a neat timeline that'll make your adultery undeniable. No judge in this state would grant you a dime. You'll lose everything." Her eyes flicked to the side, as if searching for a glimmer of hope, but there was none. She nodded, tears streaking down her cheeks, and she signed. The pen scratched across the paper, finalizing the end of our marriage with a few strokes of black ink. She set the pen aside, burying her face in her hands. I stood and gathered the papers. "You have 1 week to pack." She opened her mouth to speak, but all that came out was a soft sob. I left her there. I felt no satisfaction, only a grim sense of completion. The next morning, I awoke to the sound of boxes rustling in the hallway. Jennifer was already packing. I lingered in the doorway of our bedroom and watched her fold clothes into a suitcase. She picked up a framed photo from our wedding day, us standing on a cliff by the sea, grinning, wind in our hair, wide-eyed with hope and love. She held it for a moment, then gently placed it in a box. I wondered if she felt regret. I wondered if she even recognized how far we'd fallen. But I said nothing, turned around, and headed to the shower. A day or two later, she walked up to me in the living room, her voice shaky. "Can we talk, just for a second?" I glanced at her. She stood there with her shoulders bowed, looking like a stranger. "Go ahead." She swallowed hard. "I know nothing can change what I did. I was stupid, selfish. I fell for the excitement, the attention. I thought you were too absorbed in your work to notice me. Maybe I wanted you to chase me." She gave a bitter laugh. "And now you have. Just not the way I hoped." I remained silent. She sighed, tears brimming. "I guess all I can say is, I'm sorry. Truly." I examined her face. I used to know every contour, every expression, used to love her so fiercely. Now it felt like I was standing across from someone else entirely. "Goodbye, Jennifer," I said softly. "I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for." Her lip quivered. She gave a slight nod, turned, and went back to packing. By the end of the week, she was gone. The house felt eerily silent in her absence, but I welcomed the quiet. Now there was only me and the hum of electronics that never sleep. I spent the following month finalizing my hold on Michael's new ventures. He'd text me occasional updates, curt and formal, letting me know about meetings with potential investors. Each time, I'd respond with a short directive or a reminder of my share. It was an odd game. I could sense his resentment bleeding through every word, but there was nothing he could do. Not while I held his entire future in my hand. In the evenings, I'd stand by the window, looking out at the lights of Los Angeles. Sometimes, I'd think about how easily life can twist. How in the blink of an eye, you find yourself in a place you never imagined you'd be. My anger had become a quiet, steady presence, like a second heartbeat. I wondered if it would ever leave me. Maybe not. Maybe that was the price for vengeance. It should have ended there, but fate has a way of complicating things. One weekend, I was reviewing some documents related to Michael's expansions when I noticed suspicious transactions. Funds diverted into unregistered accounts, side deals with shady partners. The numbers looked bigger each week. He was funneling money elsewhere, probably trying to build a safety net beyond my reach. I stared at my laptop screen, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Did the man never learn? Did he think I wouldn't see it? I made a phone call. He picked up on the third ring. "Henry," he said, sounding rushed. "What do you want?" "I'm in a meeting." "We have a problem," I replied calmly. "Money is vanishing from our joint accounts." "Care to explain?" He took a sharp breath. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Stop lying," I said, voice cold as steel. "We're meeting. Tonight. There's a little restaurant on Neth. I'll text you the address." 8 o'clock. He opened his mouth to protest, but I ended the call. My heart hammered in my chest. I felt that old mixture of fury and determination swirl inside me. After everything, he still thought he could outsmart me. I arrived early at the restaurant. This place was quiet, tucked away in a less glamorous part of town. The decor was simple, a few dim overhead lights, red check tablecloths, the faint smell of pasta sauce in the air. I chose a corner table where no one would overhear us. Michael walked in at precisely 8, looking a little disheveled. He took off his jacket and sank into the chair opposite me. He didn't say hello. "So," I began. "Talk." He set his jaw. "Those transactions are part of a side project, a private investment I'm making under my own name. It's legal. I'm not obligated to tell you everything I do." I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a near whisper. "But you are obligated, because you signed over controlling interest in all your ventures to me. I'm your silent partner, remember? You do not get to hide money. That's breach of contract." He glared at me, eyes flashing. "So what? You're going to sue me now? Ruin me? If you force my hand." He let out a harsh laugh. "Why do you even care? You took my life already. My deals, my future. You want to keep me caged like an animal. Squeeze me until there's nothing left." I narrowed my eyes. "I didn't start this, Michael. You walked into my home, into my marriage. You took what was mine." I simply responded, "Don't expect me to show mercy now." He clenched his fists on the table, his composure slipping. "You're a psychopath. You know that. Normal people don't do this. They get angry, they scream, maybe they fight it out in court. But you're so damn cold. It's like nothing gets to you. I bet you just love watching me squirm." I inhaled slowly. "You might be right," I said. "But you know what? It doesn't matter. I'm not here for your therapy session. I'm here to remind you that I hold all the cards. If you breach our agreement, I release the footage. I dismantle everything you've built. And next time, there will be no second chance. You'll be finished." He was shaking with rage. For a moment, I thought he might lunge at me. But he didn't. He just sat back, exhaled, and said, "Fine. I'll transfer the funds back." "Good. And if you try something like this again, I'll end it," I said, standing. "Enjoy your dinner." I walked out, leaving him there. Outside, the night air was cool, and the city lights glowed with an indifferent shimmer. My mind churned with conflicting emotions. Part of me felt triumphant, in control. Another part felt sick, as if I'd sunk to a level I never wanted to reach. But I also remembered the image of him on my couch with Jennifer, how casually they laughed, while I was asleep upstairs, clueless. That memory snuffed out whatever pity I might have had. Time drifted on, and my life settled into a new rhythm. I focused on my work, developing advanced software for smart home systems. I accepted more contracts, traveled occasionally, tested out prototypes. In quiet moments, when I was alone with my thoughts, I'd wonder if I was truly free, or if I was chained to my own revenge. Anger is a strange thing. It can drive you, push you to accomplish feats you never thought possible, but it can also devour you from within. One afternoon, I got a call from a real estate agent. She said Jennifer had reached out about selling the house. I froze. "Excuse me?" The agent sounded apologetic. "She claims joint ownership, but obviously I need to speak with you. Your name is on the deed as the sole owner, but she's under the impression she can list it. She wants the proceeds." I nearly laughed. She was truly desperate. "No," I said. "She has no claim. I'll handle her. Thank you for notifying me." After I hung up, I texted Jennifer, "Call me now." She replied a few minutes later with a short, tentative okay. My phone rang almost immediately. "Henry," she said, her tone trembling. "How dare you try to sell my house?" She sucked in a breath. "I wasn't trying to sell it behind your back. I need money. And I thought, maybe if I could get my share, we could settle it amicably." I closed my eyes. "You already signed everything away. You have no share." "Henry," she murmured, sounding small. "I have nothing. I can't afford rent in LA. I can barely keep up with my bills. I made a mistake, I know, but do you really hate me that much?" I paused, inhaling. Once I would have done anything for her. I would have given her every last dime if it meant her happiness. Now, the only thing I felt was an icy detachment. "You betrayed me," I said. "I gave you a choice, and you signed. It's not my job to fix your life now." She choked back a sob. "God, Henry, I wish I could take it all back." "Me too," I whispered, and ended the call. I stood there in my living room, the ghostly hush echoing off the walls. This was the same room where I had found her with Michael. I pictured them entwined on the couch, the flicker of the TV playing over their heated bodies, the hush of their frantic whispers. And I remembered the cold certainty that washed over me then, the exact moment my love for her died, and something darker took its place. If she thought she'd get one more drop of mercy from me, she was wrong. And so the weeks passed again, each day a reminder of the new order I had created. Michael stayed in line, focusing on the ventures I controlled. Jennifer vanished from my immediate circle, living somewhere in a modest apartment, no doubt struggling. My parents called occasionally, asking how I was doing. I told them I was fine, that the divorce was final. They sensed something was off, but I was never a man of many words. "We love you, Henry," my mother said once, softly. "Whatever happened, we're here." I thanked her. My father tried to prod more details from me, but I skillfully deflected. They lived in the Midwest, far from the complexities of Los Angeles. Maybe it was better they didn't know the whole truth. One evening, I found myself alone in my study, scanning through old photos stored on my home server. Pictures of Jennifer and me at the beach, at family gatherings, on trips. Smiles, embraces, stolen kisses. Each one felt like a dagger. I lingered on an image of us standing on a balcony, her eyes shining with love. I almost forgot the heartbreak. Almost. Then I remembered how she looked at Michael, and the dagger in my chest twisted again. I reached out and hovered my finger over the delete all button, feeling the weight of what that meant. Was I ready to erase every trace of our past? If I did, would that free me, or would it just leave me emptier? But maybe that emptiness was the point. Maybe I wanted a complete purge, to let go of the man I used to be. The thoughtful husband who believed in loyalty and trust. The naive fool who never saw it coming. I pressed down. The confirmation box appeared. "Are you sure you want to permanently delete these files?" My hand trembled. My heart pounded. I clicked yes. A loading bar flicked by, and then the photos were gone. Years of memories erased in seconds. My chest felt tight, but the corners of my mouth curled in a weary half-smile. It was done. Another severed tie. The next day, Michael texted me an invitation to a corporate event, a networking opportunity for potential new investors. I suspected it was an attempt to show he was still relevant, still forging ahead despite the quiet partner in the shadows. I decided to attend. Let him see me there, watching, reminding him of my hold. The event was in a glittery downtown hotel ballroom, full of men and women in tailored suits, swirling expensive drinks, exchanging business cards. I spotted Michael easily, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a charcoal suit with an ostentatious tie. He was in a circle of financiers, laughing in that booming way of his, gesturing expansively. I approached, and as soon as he caught sight of me, his laughter died. He forced a thin smile. "Gentlemen," he said, stepping aside, "this is Henry Walker, my partner in certain ventures. He's the brains behind some brilliant new tech solutions." I greeted them calmly, shaking hands. There were questions about my background, about what I was developing. I answered politely, treading that line between intrigue and secrecy. Eventually, the group drifted on to mingle with others, and Michael was left facing me. He swallowed. "Everything good?" I sipped my drink. "No further hidden transactions I should know about." He gave a tight shake of his head. "I'm done testing your patience. I can't risk it." "Smart man." I glanced around at the glittering crowd. "You're quite the showman. Still love the spotlight." He shrugged, as if trying to sound casual. "I'm good at this. Charming people, winning them over. That's why you needed me, right? You can't do it alone. You're the silent one. I bring the show." His voice held a hint of bitterness, as if clinging to the last shred of dignity he had. I nodded. "That's the arrangement." We stood there in awkward silence. Then he cleared his throat. "I saw Jennifer recently." My spine stiffened. "Did you?" He nodded, eyes flicking to gauge my reaction. "She asked me for money. I turned her down. Told her it was all tied up in business. Our business." I exhaled slowly. "Let me guess, she thinks you have some moral obligation to help her out." A corner of his mouth twitched. "She didn't quite put it that way. More like she feels used and discarded by both of us." I said nothing, swirling the ice in my glass. He gave a half smile. "We're quite the pair, aren't we?" "I'm not your pair," I said coldly, setting my drink down. "Don't ever mistake that. I'm your owner." His jaw clenched. If words could kill, I might have been dead on the spot. But out loud, he only murmured, "Right." Then he turned away to greet another colleague, leaving me with an odd sense of triumph mingled with disgust. I'd become a warden presiding over 2 inmates in different prisons, her with no money or security, him shackled to a contract he couldn't escape. This was my revenge, and it was working. But at what cost? I left the event early, heading back to my car. The night air wrapped around me. I stared at the reflections in the tinted skyscraper windows, noticing the faint lines on my face I'd never seen before. At 45, I still had years ahead, but I felt old. More than old, tired, drained. I sank into the driver's seat and let out a breath I felt I'd been holding for months. On the drive home, I found myself replaying every moment of that night I caught them. The darkness, the flicker of the TV, their whispers, the hush that fell when I stepped into the room. And the strangest feeling swept over me. It was no longer a flash of anger, or even betrayal. It felt almost hollow, like a memory from another life. I realized that their night of pleasure was the end of one version of me, and the birth of another, a man I didn't particularly like. That week, I had a dream about Jennifer. She was standing at the edge of our old living room, wearing a simple summer dress. She turned to me, smiling the way she used to, eyes crinkling with warmth. Then behind her, Michael appeared, placing a hand on her shoulder. The smile vanished. I tried to speak, but my mouth wouldn't move. A phone rang in the distance, a shrill sound that echoed through the dream. Jennifer turned away, walking into the dark, Michael trailing behind. And I was left, alone, silent, with that phone's ring piercing my skull. I jerked awake, heart pounding. The alarm read 3:48 a.m. The house was dark, empty. I sat up, drenched in sweat. The sheets tangled around my legs. A wave of nausea hit me. I stumbled to the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face. In the mirror, I saw a man with hollow eyes. A stranger. I realized, with sudden clarity, that I was losing something important. Perhaps I'd lost it the moment I refused to let my rage find a healthy outlet. It was devouring me from the inside. In the days that followed, the final step of my plan, my ultimate revenge, played out in a strangely anticlimactic way. My controlling interest in Michael's ventures gave me a free hand to do what I wanted. So I sold off key assets, restructured the entire business in my name, and quietly locked him out. The contract he'd signed gave me the right to do so. With just a few strategic moves, I took the entire empire he was building. He only found out when his bank accounts were frozen, and he couldn't access the operating capital. I received a call from him that morning. "You bastard," he hissed. "You can't do this. I signed the contract, but I never agreed to." I cut him off. "You signed without reading the fine print. That was your choice." He let out an incoherent snarl. "I'll sue you. I'll drag you through the courts for fraud." "You'll lose," I said calmly. "Everything is documented. Every clause, every addendum. It's all legitimate. You relinquished control. And if you go public with any accusations, I'll release the footage. Then you'll be known as a liar and a cheat who trespassed into a married man's home to sleep with his wife. How many high-profile investors will stand by you then? Use your brain, Michael." There was a long silence. I heard him breathing heavily, like he was on the verge of a breakdown. Then he whispered, "You really are a monster." And the line went dead. I stared at my phone for a moment, then set it aside. I felt no joy, no sense of triumph, just the echo of emptiness. I thought about Jennifer, how I had left her with nothing, how I now took everything from Michael. This was the final stage, the conclusion to a story of betrayal and vengeance. I'd won, if you can call it winning. The next day, I found Michael waiting for me outside my office building. His shirt was rumpled, tie askew, eyes bloodshot. As I stepped outside, he walked straight up, fists clenched. For a moment, I thought he might punch me. I braced myself, but he just stood there, lips trembling. "You took it all," he said, voice quavering. "Everything." "Congratulations." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. He stared at me for a few heartbeats, then spat at my feet. "Rot in hell." He turned and walked away, shoulders hunched. I watched him fade into the busy street traffic, a single figure swallowed by the crowd. That evening, I changed the locks to the house. Not because I feared Jennifer would come back, but because it felt symbolic. A final step, shutting out the past. The house was quiet, as always. The living room was neat, couch cushions perfectly arranged. It looked almost staged, like no one lived here, like it was just a showroom. And in a sense, that's what my life had become, a facade of normalcy covering an inner wasteland. I poured myself a whiskey and sank into the armchair that once belonged to my father. The same chair he used to read me bedtime stories in when I was a kid, back in Chicago. I closed my eyes, letting the liquor burn my throat. My phone lay face up on the coffee table, the screen dark. In that quiet darkness, I thought of all the illusions I once held. That love was forever, that trust was inviolable, that a good man could keep evil at bay just by being good. And I realized how naive that was. We're all capable of darkness when pushed. I opened my eyes, looking at the faint reflection of my face in the black screen. I didn't recognize myself anymore. Time passed in small, steady increments after that. I signed deals, made money. Lawyers handled the final aspects of the divorce. Jennifer never tried to contact me again. Michael disappeared from the social scene, presumably licking his wounds. Some nights, I stared at the city lights and felt nothing. If I was waiting for a sense of freedom or relief, it hadn't come. Maybe it would never come. Maybe this was the price. A few weeks later, I was in the grocery store, mechanically picking out a few items. A nice cut of steak, some vegetables, a bottle of wine. I've always been a decent cook. Jennifer used to joke that it was one reason she stayed with me so long. That thought made me grimace. As I turned the corner of the aisle, I nearly bumped into a figure with a cart. It was Jennifer, hair pulled back, face pale. She looked thinner, tired. We both froze. She managed a tight smile, as if we were mere acquaintances. Henry. I nodded. Jennifer. We stood there in awkward silence, the fluorescent lights glaring down on us, the hum of the freezers in the background. Finally, I said, "You look different." She gave a short, humorless laugh. "Yeah, well, life does that." She glanced into my cart, then back at me. "I guess you're doing well." I shrugged. "I'm getting by." She licked her lips. "I'm sorry about everything, Henry. I know that's meaningless now, but I need you to know." I nodded slowly. "I believe you're sorry. And I'm sorry, too, that it ever got to this point." We stood there a moment longer. Her eyes glistened, and I could tell she was holding back tears. "Take care," she whispered, then rolled her cart away. I watched her go, feeling a strange pang in my chest. Not love, not anger, just a heavy sadness. She was once the most precious person in my world. Now she was a stranger. I finished my shopping, went home, cooked my steak. It tasted like sawdust in my mouth. I set my fork down. Appetite gone. The house felt too quiet, as if the walls were pressing in. So I stepped outside onto the back patio. The sun was setting, painting the sky in streaks of orange and pink. I closed my eyes, listened to the distant hum of traffic, and let myself just be for a moment. A wave of something surged through me. Sorrow, regret, the weight of what I'd done, of what had been done to me. But there was also a whisper of release, like exhaling after holding my breath far too long. I realized that revenge had never been about making me whole again. It was about proving that I wasn't a doormat, that I wouldn't be destroyed by betrayal. But it didn't heal me. It simply carved out a space where my pain could sit, cold and numb, overshadowing everything else. I reached for my phone, thinking maybe I'd call my mother or father, just to hear a voice that cared. But then I hesitated. The phone felt like a weight in my palm. I remembered the first time I used it to confront them, how I threatened to broadcast Michael's face to the entire world. That single action set the tone for everything that followed. I realized, with a slow dawning clarity, that as long as I clung to the phone, clung to the evidence, the threat, the strings I'd pulled, I would never be free of this anger. So I unlocked the phone, typed in the passcode to my secure folder, the one with all the damning footage, pictures, messages, everything that gave me leverage, power, control, and I hovered my finger over the delete button. My heart pounded. I'd won. Did I really need to keep every receipt of that victory, or every piece of evidence of my humiliation? Could I let it go? A searing wave of memories flooded me. Her moans, their whispers. The sting in my gut when I realized my wife had no trouble bringing a man into my house while I slept. But also the nights I spent quietly plotting, the deals I forced Michael to sign, the twisted sense of triumph. Holding on to that evidence meant holding on to the day I stopped being the person I once was. I pressed delete. The phone asked me to confirm, and I did. The folder vanished. I felt a jolt of panic, followed by an unexpected lightness, as though a fraction of the weight had lifted from my chest. The evidence was gone. I still owned his business. I still had the final divorce in place. None of that was undone. But the symbolic chain of blackmail and control, the entire relic of that night, was removed from my immediate grasp. I breathed in the evening air, letting the tension in my shoulders slip away. For the first time in months, I sensed something like calm, or the beginning of it. The aftermath of betrayal never truly vanishes, and I knew I would carry these scars forever. But maybe, just maybe, I could find a path forward that wasn't defined solely by bitterness. I stood there until the sun dipped below the horizon, until the sky turned to a deep navy sprinkled with faint stars. In the silence, I thought about the man I had become. Part of me felt relief that I'd managed to punish those who hurt me. Another part, though, felt the hollow truth. Revenge is never an end. It's a transition, an act that changes you as much as it changes your enemies. I walked back inside, locked the door behind me. The house was quiet. I could almost hear the echo of my own heartbeats. Each step echoed across the hardwood floor. For a moment, I recalled the first time Jennifer and I stepped into this place. We were so excited to buy our first home in Los Angeles, to carve out a future together. I remembered the way her eyes lit up at the big windows, how we talked about maybe getting a dog someday, hosting holiday parties, building a life. Now, all of that was gone. The illusions were shattered, and yet, I stood here, still alive, still breathing. I had lost so much, but I had gained a harsh clarity about who I was and what I was capable of. Maybe that was the real horror of betrayal. It strips you bare, reveals the parts of yourself you never wanted to see. The part that can be as cold and ruthless as any enemy. But I also realized something else, that letting go of the evidence, of the threat, meant letting go of them. Letting them drift out of my orbit. I had played judge, jury, and executioner. My verdict was delivered, my sentence carried out. Now perhaps it was time to step off that stage. I don't know if forgiveness is within me. Some wounds are too deep. But maybe acceptance is possible. Not acceptance of what they did, but acceptance of the fact that it's over. They took my old life away. I constructed a new one, built on vengeance, and that's run its course, too. In the quiet hush of the house, I can finally hear the faint sound of my own heartbeat, steady and persistent. Outside, traffic murmurs in the distance. Neighbors laugh somewhere down the street, a muffled conversation drifting through open windows. Life goes on, and maybe, just maybe, so will I. I walk to the kitchen, open a cabinet, and pull out a glass. Slowly, I fill it with water from the tap, then raise it to my lips. The water is cold, refreshing. I stare out the kitchen window, letting the city lights twinkle at me. I don't have all the answers. I don't even know if I'll ever truly heal from this. But I know I'm still here. And I know that revenge, for all its seductive power, is not the same as peace. It's just a station on the way. And eventually, you have to decide whether to get off and walk forward on your own. Tonight, I choose to set the glass down, breathe deeply, and stand in the stillness of my own home. Even if the emptiness lingers, even if the ghosts of what once was never fully leave, this is my space now, mine and mine alone. I take one last look at my phone. No new notifications, no texts, no calls. The screen is dark. I slide it away, leaving it face down on the counter. A small click resounds as it goes into sleep mode, like the click of a lock from somewhere long ago. Only this time, I feel no surge of anger, no dread, no tension. Just a quiet, resolute acceptance that whatever my life is now, I'm the one who has to live it. Alone, but intact. And perhaps that's enough.